Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to get started, and it's really good to see everyone. It's been a while. Thanks for joining. Yeah, I just wanted to say hi. My name is Ab. Some of you know me. I'd love to hear where is everybody joining in from today. I'm actually calling in from beautiful, warm, 90-degree plus Toronto weather here. So, where is everybody coming in from? I just wanted to get everyone to introduce each other.
Edmonton. Toronto?
Toronto, Edmonton.
No, is that what you said? Did you say
Yeah,
Toronto?
I'm in Toronto.
90 degrees?
So
Joke.
I was just testing to see if you were listening.
Yeah, I was thinking, wait a minute, we're talking about Toronto, Canada? Or, I don't know.
Oh, almost minus 90, but yeah, no, it's freezing cold today, so Barrie, New York. Same office,
Texas.
I've never heard that guy. Texas. Where in Texas?
I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. I'm in a suburb called Grand Prairie.
So my parents and my sister all live there. Don't ask me where because they just drive me from the airport and I've never paid attention. But Collingwood, so nice warm weather up there too, right? Halifax, Newmarket, there we go. Yeah, probably getting a lot of snow there too, right? So what we're going to do today is, as some of you know, I am very much involved in the research, the neuroscience, the psychology of remote meetings, and how they're going to go ahead and be transformed. And today's going to be unique. We actually have a workshop on top of some of the learnings. I'm actually going to show you live by putting some people into a hot seat and questioning them and trying to see if we can actually uncover a better presentation. So we're going to go ahead and transform your Zoom meeting. And my name is Ab Udukuri. I'm the founder, CEO at Vizetto. As you guys all know, or a lot of you know, I'm the engineer. I'm not the salesperson in the company. But I love to go ahead and talk about the stuff that I've learned over the years. I am a technical individual who's written a lot of code, but I love to go ahead and demonstrate how technology is changing. So let's talk about some of the objectives that we have today. First up, I want to show you the science and the neuroscience behind focus. What happens is we all jump into technology, think we need to buy this, but don't really understand the fundamentals of why something is working and why something is not working. Now, this is a big thing for me. I want to show you how to convert your presentations into conversations. All of us know, whether we are in marketing or sales or human resources, we want to talk to people. How do we get that back? And show you how you can be in the same room with your audience virtually. How do you blur that line? That's one of my objectives. And I'm also going to teach you some of the best practices, and however way you implement them, I just want to go ahead and teach such that you can look for solutions as well. And I'll make some recommendations. So first up, I want some simple house rules that we can go ahead and discuss. Unlike every other webinar, this is live. I'm right here. All of you are here. And I would love for you to turn your video on. The reason being, I want to feel like I'm talking to people, and I want you to feel like you're talking to me. That's okay, Laura. That looks really good. Unless you're sharing. Turn your video on. That's great. And unlike every other video conference, I want you to unmute so that we don't have this awkward, hey, you're on mute. Unless you have some big road noises and construction sites, you know what? Let's actually have a conversation. Don't feel intimidated that you have to click that unmute button to share. And have fun, share, comment, call me out, ask me questions. We're gonna have a conversation, and I'm gonna show you a completely different type of webinar experience. How many people on here have been to webinars over the last 2 years? Hands up. There you go. So you've seen dozens and dozens of them. So I want you to tell me at the end of it if I taught you something new, okay? So first up, 2.5 years into the pandemic, we have some massive challenges, and we know, first of all, I love hybrid work. I love the fact that I can reach out to all sorts of people really easily with technology, but I'm also struggling with a whole bunch of issues. And most of those are related to the work from home, the lack of structure, the lack of timelines, the fact that our work life and home life is completely blurred. But the biggest reason is lack of engagement. I feel like I'm completely missing out It's just a non-stop drone of meetings and that whole anxiety of the fact that I'm not connecting with anyone. And over the last 2 years, I've really tried to dig in to understand where this is going and how this is progressing. So if you look at the stats, it's over 250% increase in video conferencing over the last 2 years. I know I don't have to convince you of that. It's insane how fast it's actually going. But the problem that's actually happening is most of us are spending anywhere between 6 to 7 hours in the IT technology spaces where you're glued to your screens. And what is that going to do to you psychologically? And there's a lot of interesting research on this. So it turns out, according to a lot of research, if you read a book on a digital screen versus pick up a paperback novel and read the exact same book, your brain will be much more engaged with the paper book, not the e-reader. Well, there's a very similar analogy to this. If you take a baby and you put a digital screen with the parents in front of the baby, or you put real parents, anybody here who are parents, who do you think the baby's going to react to? Do you think it'll be, the digital screen? Actually, our brains are wired to go ahead and look for real people in engagement. You know, when a baby is about 4 to 5 weeks old, it starts learning to look at your eyes. Within 2 months, they learn to smile at you. And I used to tell my wife that if they didn't smile at us, they're such pains in the asses when they're young that we would like leave them outside, right? Like, no. So the human engagement is absolutely critical. And what happens is screens are inherently more distracting. I can cite a lot of research for this. So if you're struggling to connect on a video call and you're struggling to stay awake, understand that that's not your fault. It's actually the technology itself. Screens are inherently more distracting. So now when you look at the stats, no matter how rosy everybody's making it be, you basically had less than 5% working in a hybrid pre-pandemic. Now you're to 37%. That's actually going to increase to 40 to 45% within the next year or so. That's a pretty significant change in our society. And around 54% of the workers right now are looking to leave their jobs to get more flexibility. But at the same time, a large percentage are feeling lonely. So let's look at that dichotomy. I want to leave my job because I want the flexibility. Oh no, I'm actually now feeling anxiety and loneliness. So what's interesting is you can't have it all, right? Or maybe you can. So those are the type of things that I'm really looking to research. So when you talk about loneliness, when you talk about anxiety, when you talk about engagement, what we all value in a really great environment is this, is the ability to sit around the table and actually engage, right? So I don't think any one of us would disagree that engagement is actually important for our career development, for professional development. But what happens today is something called the cocktail party effect. And what's interesting with this is, this was given to me by my friend, Dr. Noel Amalados. He is a cognitive behavioral scientist and a professor at McMaster. And what he goes is, let me explain it to you this way. When you go to a cocktail party, we've all been there. Remember 3 years ago when we used to do that? Now, we used to go ahead and have superficial connections with people. We used to come in and say, hey, what's your name? Hey, Bob. Hey, Mary. Hey, Steve. And you used to get to know them at a superficial level. But then you go to party after party, and there's a whole bunch of people you never got to know. Now, that's called the cocktail party effect, where from a neural learning point of view, you're not really indexing much information about things, and that's what's actually happening when we go to a lot of remote calls. Our brains are at the cocktail party level. We skim along the top, and we pick up a small piece of information, and that makes it a real challenge for us. If we're in sales, we're in marketing, we are trying to create relationships with team members. How do you break free? And we also have to remember that a lot of us can't really index lots of information long term. So there's a rule here as to how we go ahead and do that. We get difficulty in multitasking, we get difficulty in engaging in these cocktail parties. So whenever you look at the future of work, to me, this is the word that's going to resonate this year. The last 2 years, when I talked to business owners, I probably talked to about 1,000 leaders over the last 2 years, lots of meetings. And what I find is 2 years ago, it's about survival. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Last year was just about climbing out of the hole. Okay, we all got laptops, we all got cameras, we're starting to make this work. Now the word is about engagement. How am I going to make sure the culture in my company is going to consistently move forward? How are we going to prioritize strong relationships? How are we going to make sure that our decision making is transparent no matter what we are actually doing? And how is it that we're going to foster best practices on giving feedback so that you actually feel connected to each other so it doesn't look like criticism? There's a whole bunch of things that people are actually focused on. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about the fundamental problem that's actually happening here. Slide hell, remote meeting hell, PowerPoint fatigue. Are you part of these type of meetings? I'm going to have 210 slides and I'm going to read each paragraph word for word. How many people have actually been? There you go. Only Jamie. Everybody else has amazing meetings.
Have you met Sean?
So I want to, I need a volunteer. I'm going to show you something called cognitive bias, okay? Somebody volunteer for me. Who's going to raise their hand? Okay, Laura, you're going to do this. I want you to do something called the street test. Okay. You're not going to read the words blue. You're going to read the color that it represents. See how fast you can read it. Go for it.
Are you going to point to them?
No, go for it. You go.
Okay, red, green, blue.
No. You said green.
No, that's what it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on. Sorry, go on.
Pink, yellow, red, green, black, blue, red, yellow.
There you go. Now, if you didn't have to worry about reading the actual color, you would have been way faster, right? So what it is this is actually showing something called context. Okay? So your brain wants to read what it wants to read. It doesn't necessarily read what's into the context. So understanding context requires far more cognitive ability, and that's a real big challenge. So when you look at news and media, isn't it amazing how you read an article and someone else reads the exact same article and they get completely different information from it? And then people will go, the media is biased. Well, you know what? Your PowerPoint is actually doing something very similar. You're going to come in and you could be talking about something, but somebody else has already scanned this slide in about 100 milliseconds, and they picked out the words that they want to pick out. And there's a lot of neuroscience research that shows you that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you how we actually read. So, Jamie, I'm going to ask you to volunteer because you had your hand up. Now, can you actually, maybe you've seen this before, but can you read this, read that slide easily?
Not really. Hold on.
Can you see it?
Words, even if they were right, I can see it, but.
There you go. But can anybody actually scan through and see?
Mine. Yeah, okay.
Hey, Jay.
The research.
Yeah, go for it. Research. Can you read?
Yeah, according to the research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters of the word are. Oh, wow, that's kind of funny. I've seen this before, but never actually done it. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place.
Wow.
And then the rest.
You know what? Okay, isn't that really interesting? Now, what's also interesting is, take a look at this. I can actually replace letters with even characters and numbers and random garbage, and you can still read it. Okay? So, what this does is it shows you from a cognitive point of view, your brain actually fills in the gaps. Okay? You don't read, you scan. That's what it does. Okay, so this is what's happening. In 100 milliseconds you go through, you don't get context, then it fills in the gaps, and it says, hey, you know what? I know what you're going to go present. Oh yeah, there's a text message here. Let me go back to that. There's an email. I can respond to that. And here you are with amazing, beautiful decks that marketing gave you that you're going, okay, I'm going to nail this customer. I'm going to nail this class, right? So what you have is you have something called cognitive bias. So that cognitive bias is a barrier that's actually stopping you from connecting with your individuals, with your partners, with your customers, because they inherently come to the table going, I know what you're going to talk about. So that's one of the reasons why remote meetings make it very difficult. So first of all, I call this transform your Zoom meetings. I want to show you some tips and tricks about using Zoom. You might think there's a whole bunch of things. Maybe you know everything, but at the same time, I'm going to show you. So number one is configure your camera. So a lot of people don't realize how important that is. I'm actually going to set something up. Now, for example, my camera here is moving with me. If I go in and accidentally mirror my camera, it'll actually move in the opposite direction. You might not realize it, but the fact that you're not moving in sync with the image on the screen like a mirror can actually cause you to not like your image. If a lot of people go, I hate turning on the camera, it could be as simple as clicking the mirror my video button. Okay, try it out. Because if you mirror it and your Zoom video is moving in the opposite direction, you actually might need to fix that. And that is one of the reasons why we don't feel comfortable, because it's not representative of what we're used to, which is a normal mirror. Number two, there's something called dual monitors. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Zoom actually has an opportunity where you can create an audience monitor such that if I take my audience monitor, I can look at you on a secondary screen. There you go. And you could actually look at me. So I'm elevating my presence to you, and you're elevating your presence to me. So that's actually really critical to be able to use that. I want you to set up a second monitor if you're able to. It's a very low cost investment. And if you connect that up, you have your content over here, you have your monitor over here. And that actually can dramatically improve your engagement and feel like you're talking to real people, because Zoom does a bunch of things that are wrong. So then, check your statistics. If you check on statistics inside the Zoom window again, you're going to see a whole bunch of things that tell you about bandwidth, and you can very quickly diagnose if there's a problem, if something is going on with your network provider. It can actually show you how many frames per second, so you could at least be aware of potential problems. So again, there's a lot of things on Zoom. I'm not going to go into it. I just wanted to let you know there are advanced features that you can go ahead and play with. So the second thing that you have to do is, now that you've configured your network, you got to set up your stage properly. What does that mean? Well, one of the CEOs I recently spoke to talked about every meeting being an opportunity to perform. He said, I think of a sales meeting as an opportunity for me to set the stage and perform. And that performance mindset is absolutely key. So when you look through what performance looks like, first step is again, you might not like your camera image because your camera is not set up properly. And I'm going to talk about why the camera image is really important. But for example, if you actually look at the camera being too high or look at the camera being too low, it's actually going to give you the wrong perspective. It's going to look up at you. So a lot of you could easily do this. So Max, if you've got some textbooks or something, Jamie, go ahead and see if you can lift up your laptop, and you'll actually see if you like that perspective better. Find an angle that will make you, because a lot of times, yeah, Adam, what you're doing is you're rotating the camera up, and what that does is it again makes you in your mind not look like you. Then you don't like your image. And that's the challenge that most of us have, is understanding that simple changes to the camera can make a dramatic improvement. Now, same thing with lighting. By having a desk lamp looking at you versus looking at, understand that turn off the lights in the background and turn on the desk lamp. It's a very simple thing to go ahead and make sure, because again, whether it be the lighting, whether it be the presence, all of these type of things are crucial in order not for you to be comfortable, but also for people to actually relate with you. So what happens a lot of times is our brains have to do extra work to process images that are not what we expect. If the lights are dull or dim, and I have to struggle to see your face properly, my brain will give up. It'll just go, hey, that's not looking right. Let's focus somewhere else. But if the light is, if the image is nice and bright, it's coming through cleanly, your brain will automatically look out for faces. So that's a key portion of engagement. So, and what you also want to do is, then I want to go ahead and talk about best practices. By the way, any questions so far? I am going through a lot of content quickly just because we're going to get to the workshop aspect of things. But if you do have questions, please ask me so I can absolutely answer them. Okay, so then I'm going to talk to you about, now that you have your presentation stage set up, you've got Zoom configured, how do you treat your content? How do you work with that? Let's actually talk about those best practices now. Awesome, Jamie, you're already trying the light out?
It's been sitting on my desk in front of me for a month and I haven't used it.
Well, there you go. Actually, I want to see the difference. Can you turn the light on? And I want everybody else to see the difference instantly. There you go, right? Okay, now turn the light back on. Okay, now, you might not realize it, but subconsciously, you'll want to see Jamie's face more if the light is on. Absolutely, it's a good thing. So those are the type of things that I'm always showing people, how simple changes can make a dramatic difference. And Laura, you've got a great setup. You've always well lit, easy to see the background. It's just absolutely perfect from a lighting point of view, so you know what you're doing. So here's what you want to go ahead and do. And a lot of people ask me this, okay, I want to tell people, hey, let's present. There's no need for a deck, you're just going to talk to me. Okay, that's actually a great idea if you're in person. See, in person, people look at you as an individual and there's all sorts of sensory information coming, and you don't need a deck. I agree with that. But the opposite happens in remote meetings. They do this. The camera disappears completely, and the deck takes over. This is really bad too, because in about 3 to 4 minutes, you're going to disconnect from the deck. Remember, I told you, I'm going to do my cognitive bias. I scan the thing in 100 milliseconds. I read what I want to read. I assume that, hey, I know exactly what's going on, and I'm done. It turns out that the deck is only 7% of the value of the actual performance in a meeting. So all the marketing dollars that you put in, at the end of the day, if the deck was that important, you don't really need salespeople or marketing people. You just send the deck out, it'll sell itself, right? So what you need to do is you need to stand out, and people want to talk to people. Let's understand that. People want to talk to people. So that means you actually have to make sure that your deck is not overtaking. But use the deck as a visual aid. So in a remote meeting, what I love to do is try and figure out a way that use the deck to improve working memory. So, and there's a whole bunch of techniques, like for example, things like chunking. Chunking is a technique, and what a lot of performance coaches will tell you, especially when you're presenting, if you're giving a TED Talk, if you're on stage and you're going to go ahead and talk to a group of people, what do you want to do? Talk about the 3 most important things you want to get out of this meeting. How do you string that along? How do you connect the dots so that people are going to go ahead and feel comfortable with what you want to present? That's the art of the narrative. Hey, and I always ask people, okay, given your deck, what's the most important thing that you want to take away? What's the next most important thing that you want to take away? Is the rest of the information important, right? Now, there's a way that once you realize that the deck is a visual aid, and then when you work through your deck in a remote presentation and start chunking, something really interesting happens. People start associating the concepts. Hey, my value proposition is this. I can solve this problem, and this is what it's going to go ahead and save you. What's the basic message you want to come down? So the next portion of this is what I call situational awareness or focus. So here's the problem that actually happens. I have to break through your bias, right? I have to try to convince you that actually what you subconsciously read is not what's important. I want you to focus on what I think is important for you. How do I do that? I draw your attention. I ink. I highlight. Now, every time I write, do your eyes go back to the deck? Do you see what I'm writing? So what I want to do is, this is called situational awareness. I'm basically making sure you focus for a second on where I want you to focus. Then I want you to come back to me to talk to me as an individual, right? And then as soon as I tell you, oh, okay, you want a 20% discount or 20% savings and you're going to be happy with this deal. Okay, you don't want this option, you want this option to be, got it. Like as soon as I start doing that, what happens is you subconsciously will look back at that word, and then you will understand what I'm saying at a deeper level. So the ability to ink, and again, if I gave you, I'll give you an example. If I gave you a simple test, right, where I had a bunch of formulas written down and I just asked you to memorize it, but if you watched me write the formula, it's called mirroring. Your brain will think that it wrote it and it will completely act differently. So those are some of the key concepts that you need to go ahead and take away. And what that allows you to do, it actually starts allowing you to have a conversation instead of having a presentation. Because a presentation is a passive experience where a conversation is a dynamic experience. You need to be interactive, engage, and basically with a conversation, you can't really predict what's going to happen next. So by using inking, reinforcement learning, by using chunking, you can convert those into amazing real-time, virtual meetings. Now, right now, how do you guys feel? Do you guys feel like you're actually watching a live individual? Have I been able to blur the lines a little? Honest opinion compared to lots of the webinars you've seen so far?
Yeah,
right?
It's been awesome. If I can, may I interrupt for a
yes,
moment?
Please.
I think it's awesome, but yeah, really awesome tips, much appreciated. One thing that's been on my mind is, you have like the Zoom basic account, that's great, but if you want to upgrade, like look at this is pretty fancy, like you got yourself going on. I can see you like stretching and zooming in. Are there any other like add-ons or things of that nature to help build those kind of conversations? Let's say for conventions or any add-ons that you would say. I don't know if you have any.
So, you know what? I don't know how you predicted what I'm going to say next, but you win a Best Buy gift card. I'm going to buy you coffee for leading me into that question.
Okay.
And I want to say that you've never met me before, so this is no. Well, the add-on that I'm actually using right here is called Reactive. So the problem is this: Zoom as an app is a phone. It just connects you to somebody else. It doesn't really tell you what to do. So what Reactive is, this is an experience that's sitting on top of Zoom or Teams or any other application framework, and it kind of focuses, it teaches you how to go ahead and present, and we have a whole bunch of best practices around it. So if you're ever interested in doing this, obviously please reach out to us and we can onboard you, we can give you a free trial, you can try this out. But we're a VC-backed company out of Toronto. We've been working on this for about 2 years. We've tested this with thousands of people, and as I said, there's a lot of research that went into it. So I'm really appreciative of your comments, but that's exactly what we want to do. We want to create a live experience on top of Zoom because Zoom's not focused on that, Teams not focused on that. So we're the whiteboarding and the presentation layer on top of video conferencing. And that's exactly what Reactive does. Now, I'm doing this in front of a big TV. This is just an off-the-shelf Dell monitor, but this could be your laptop, it could be any type of device that you're looking for, right? So does that help you answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so we can easily get you up and running on your laptop or whatever you have. So now we're going to come to the fun part. I am going to go ahead and do a live session where we have a bunch of people who volunteered to join in to how to transform your Zoom meetings. I have some of your decks, and I'm going to go through on my deck from top to bottom as to see who I have over here. And by the way, if this takes up a little bit longer, I scheduled a half an hour, feel free to stay. I would love to continue to give you a one-on-one. I don't have a huge amount of time. I'm going to spend about 6 minutes per person in order to go ahead and go through. I want to make sure that anybody who gave me the opportunity to do this, you're getting value, but we can always take it to an extended session. So number one on my list that's coming up is Max. So Max, I would love for you to tell me in 2 minutes a little bit about yourself and what your goals are to come out of here.
Well, sure. I do a lot of work with boards of directors, and it involves the part I've shared with the Av is a sort of very basic training session that we do over half a day with a board of directors and their CEO. And the challenge is when it's live, it's great. We use that in the slides in the background, and it's all interactive, and we have activities. But when we're virtual, a 3-hour meeting is one long thing.
Yes. Now, the reason a 3-hour meeting becomes a long thing is, you know what's so funny? I've always found from a psychology point of view, back in the day, I used to get up at 6 a.m., take that 8 o'clock flight to New York, get there, work all day, get that 9 p.m. flight and come back at midnight, like work nonstop, and I wasn't tired. But I sit on my butt for 5-6 hours in a Zoom meeting, I'm exhausted. And that's actually because of the engagement of your brain. If your brain is engaged in an activity that it finds interest, it'll continue to go ahead and move forward. But if your brain's not engaged, you very quickly get exhausted or tired. Now, if you start going through this particular deck, I think this is the deck that you put out, I want to go to a particular slide and let's actually take a look at it. So now, if you're talking through, give me a slide right here, okay. What is it that you would be talking through here? Can you walk me through a 30 seconds as what you would say here?
So before we start the workshop, one of the things that I want to make sure is that we're answering the questions that you have.
Okay.
So if you showed up today with a question,
okay.
Please share.
Okay, so give me an example of a question that, let's say I'm Max now. Please give me a question that your customers would say.
How do I chair the meeting when I've got people who struggle to get along?
So conflict. Okay? Tell me another point.
What do good minutes look like?
Okay? So now, how is this experience when I can come in and say, how do I add value to your experience? Let me reinforcement learn, use that technique of writing down what I just heard. And instead of me typing or taking notes, I'm doing this naturally and gesturally. How is that experience for you, given what you have seen before? Do you feel that this is different?
Oh, absolutely, because otherwise at best, I'm doing it on my flip chart behind me here, which is still hard to visualize because the distance is so far, whereas this is right in front of you.
Well, actually, let me point something out. When you share your camera through Zoom, that camera share might only be 640 by 480. It's very slow resolution. Now, when you're sharing this entire screen, you can actually read everything. That makes it be much more powerful because screen sharing is higher resolution. So the ability for you to, like, if you look at this agenda, do you usually go through this agenda? Do you basically go line by line?
Pretty much.
Okay. So now, if I said, here's the agenda, where did boards come from, the legal obligations, expectations, strategy, policy. Now, I'm going to change that up with reinforcement learning, where I am going to try and break your bias. Okay, first up, we're going to look at the history of boards. Okay, and what I just did was I actually made sure that you read that while I'm saying it. Okay, now this is a big one, legal obligations and expectations, right? We are going to focus on strategy, and policy is going to be an important aspect of things. So, visually, did that make a difference to you, right? Okay, that's actually reinforcement learning right there in live. Now, by the way, we can put in your branding, we can do all sorts of things to make sure that this comes alive for you. And a lot of the features that we're working on are going to be to make sure that you're broadcast ready automatically. We want Reactive to be this one-click broadcast ready, hey, I'm live, and I'm going to have a great experience. Now, of course, you can all do all of this with your mouse and laptop as well. You don't have to be intimidated by the fact that there's a big screen here. Now, what's interesting is, where did boards begin? You know, like there's opportunities to do all sorts of things. How many people here? Let's take a vote. What do you guys think? Is it royalty, nobility, church, corporate? When did boards begin? Anybody? Put up your vote in the chat. Let's make this. Let's show Max how we can make this whole process be interactive, just like he would be if he was live. So where are we voting? Who's saying royalty? Put your hands up. 1, 2, 3, 3 people. Okay, who's saying nobility? There's 2 people over there. So what's the real answer, Max?
Well, the real answer is this is the progression of how boards were formed, because royalty owned everything, then they passed the assets to nobility, to the church, they allowed corporations. But until 1200, the community couldn't actually own anything.
1200 was when community can own. Got it. I learned something new right there, right? So, Max, did you kind of get some ideas out of what I just did? Does that, what's your thoughts on how we're interacting with your content?
I think it's great. It's just so dynamic. I also love the fact that it's half the slide and half of you. Like you get to see that, so it's really good.
Awesome. If it's okay, I'd like to move on to Daniel. Daniel, you're next on my list. Can you hear me, Daniel? Daniel Mathis?
Yes.
Hi. So you're calling in from Sao Paulo today?
Yeah.
Wow. How's the weather down there? Snowing?
No. No, nothing like yours. It's pretty hot here today, yeah.
See, I wish you said it's snowing because then I'll feel better.
Oh. Great.
So, Daniel,
Okay.
thank you for joining. Can you give me a quick description about yourself?
Yeah, I'm the VP of a FinTech. We are currently in a Series C money raising. We just finished our Series C. We raised over 80 million US. I mean, it's a FinTech here still. We have about 400 employees, and we are here. Well, basically, I'm the VP for new business. Any new product or service that will come
Okay.
across, they will pass through my area.
Awesome.
That's how.
So, obviously, because of that role, then reaching out to customers, partners, town halls, showing new products, all sorts of things are critical, right? So,
Yeah.
now if I go through your deck right now, obviously it's in Portuguese,
Yeah.
but can you give me an insight into what you would say? What is your agenda here? Can you convert
great.
that to English?
Yeah, this is basically, we will talk about the carbon credit market.
Ah, got it. Carbon credits.
And then it is pretty much a presentation to addressing our sea level, how important it is now. Steel is not a regulated market in Brazil, but it's being, because of the ESG, it's getting more and more investors are looking for ESG companies.
Okay.
So part of my job here was to show them how important it is to start thinking now how to be a company generating zero carbon, or pretty much leveling our carbon emission offsets.
Oh wow. Okay. So now, obviously, the key takeaways that you're looking for is, if I will come back to this, is we're really looking at how to get to zero carbon, and
Yeah.
we are looking to go ahead and convince C-level executives in order to show them the importance of that for the future, right? And you might have specific stats. What did you say about Brazil? Did you give me some sort of an information or a number? Did you have a stat that you wanted to talk about in this slide, or?
What I can tell you is that currently it's an unregulated market in Brazil.
Okay.
But I know the figure, the market is growing double digit yearly. So I don't have the figures right.
Sure. No problem. So,
it's doing a lot.
as an example, let's say it's 30% that's actually growing, right?
Yeah.
Here's an opportunity to actually write that number down, because
Okay.
again, that'll reinforce the message that you care that they want to take away,
Yeah.
right? So
Great.
now, if I'm coming through, obviously this is how do you get to zero carbon? What does that say?
Actually, what are the credit?
What are credits?
Yeah, we started from scratch. Yeah, what is a carbon credit 101, I would say.
Fair enough, right? So basically you're saying carbon credits equate to 1 ton of CO2, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
every time you get 1 carbon credit, you're either saving or you're putting out a ton of carbon, right? And that's basically your emissions. And the ability, now what do you think about how I'm interacting with your content? Does that make sense to you, how we're presenting what we're doing?
Yeah, as you just said, well, having the ability to take notes yourself, you bring your receiver, you bring your how to say the people who are watching you.
The audience.
Right?
The audience.
I think your audience, yeah. That's
There you go.
Yeah, you bring your audience, you're close, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, hold on. I'm just going through right now, seeing what's on chat. There we go. Okay, so what we have the opportunity to do is what you can do then is you can actually reduce the amount of information from the slide, right? You could actually come back and now I don't have a problem with explanations, but this is a great slide because there's a huge amount of visual elements which as soon as I start circling or highlighting, and here's an example, I can actually point at something. That's one of the reasons I love this board, is because this makes me feel like I'm in front of the boardroom and you can actually see, I can go, do you like this or do you like this better? So that I think psychologically connects people because they actually are like, how'd you do that? You cannot do that in a remote meeting. And that's the type of gestural language we lose because people point to things all the time going, this is a great deal for you, right? Or this is not the right deal. And what happens is most people are not even paying attention to the screen. They have their cameras turned off and they're going, okay, whatever you said. Is that what we discussed last week? So the ability to go ahead and come in, and you actually have a great slide deck for sure, because the information is minimal. You have an opportunity to put your own context on it. And if you can go ahead and do reinforce, obviously I can't add as much value just because of the language barrier, but if you're interested, I would love to go ahead and explore this more.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next person. Jamie, how are you, buddy?
I am good.
Hope you're enjoying so far.
Oh, yeah, that I am. It's kind of my biggest thing is you kind of had me at hello. I would love to be able to do this a lot more often.
Awesome. So Jamie, give everyone here a plug about Tree Frog so that they know what you guys do.
So myself, I head up sales, work very closely with our CEO, Sean Stevens, and it's kind of funny, Laura got this earlier. Sean likes decks that have 210 pages. I, as Ab and I know, like the exact opposite. So Tree Frog, and we'll see this, we're a digital transformation agency, and the whole idea of going into a client and having every single presentation being slightly different makes it difficult to have a set presentation. We've been trying to have one presentation for a long time. But clients' needs are different, and I'm looking forward to trying this and showcasing, and we'll showcase it now.
Sure.
And make it different.
Now, actually, you brought out a great point we didn't even touch on. What you get to do is you get to personalize the deck. And as an example, I'm just going to go through a few slides again. So we have an agenda here. I'm really focused on brand development, website, marketing. Jamie, what are the 3 most important aspects that you want me to touch on today? If we only had, 1 or 2, what would you pick on? What's the biggest pain point for you?
Well, then that's the key thing. What is the biggest pain point? We need to draw this out? Have they gone through the brand development? Yes, no, what is it? How strong is the website? What does that anchor look like?
Okay.
What marketing exists today? So the marketing activities they have, what are their pain points? What is working for them? What isn't? And is that something we can focus on? Each client is a little different.
Perfect. So even saying a question like, okay, brand development, have you gone through it? Yes or no, right? Mm-hmm. So the ability to go ahead and write down, okay, you've got that. And what you can do is then you can actually save all the ink back, which we didn't talk about. But let's just see, I want to go to the slide that we talked about where you're going in championing digital transformation, right? So this is a great opportunity to have a conversation to say, well, we do a lot of things, right? So I'm Jamie, I'm at Tree Frog, I do a lot of things. So what is it that is the key value differentiator and your biggest, like if you're going to pick 2 or 3 concepts that we're going to dive in, again, I'm making some of this stuff up. Let's actually underline and highlight what are the 2 things that you want to get out of this meeting, out of this list.
Yeah, and that's where we walk them through. Everything starts with brand. Clients come to us saying, hey, I need my website, all 3D configurators on my site. Okay, let's take a step back. What are you looking like for brands? Let's take a look at that site. Clients walk through, we've got check marks there. Then we talk about what are you doing for ERP integration? Let's talk about that. What's in place? Does your operations team have pain points there?
Right.
We've done this, X, Y, and Z. And when I walk through this, one of the challenges and opportunities is I only need one slide to present all of Tree Frog. And I can touch on each individual one, and I have examples that I pull off the top of my head, and we use this as a discussion point. One thing that Abby and I talked about, how do you get new sales reps on board? Well, yeah, it's at a training. This is a great way to both describe it internally, but when I'm rehashing and doing my summary email to all of my, through all of my meetings, I can draw on it, or I can take this and I can explain what we spoke about, and it's just easier. I do a lot of videos today, and this just takes it to a whole new level. So I try to add these notes, but instead of me speaking, I get to draw, I have the opportunity to draw it on the screen.
Oh yeah, and on that, we actually have a new feature coming out. It's not out yet. There's a record button right there. So I can go, okay, hold on, 2, 3, 1. Hey, we want to show you that there's some new features coming in on the digital marketing side, and we covered the hosting infrastructure, and we also talked about web and ERP. So next week when we get back, I'll have a solution on the cost, and I'll have a solution on this. And the opportunity for me to now take that little video and ship it out to the team, which is out here. Where is that video? There we go. I have that video right there. And so that opportunity, we want to show you the distance. So it's quite awesome to be able to convert your concepts, but just wanted to show you that those are the type of things that we're focused on. We want you to be able to go from a meeting to a presentation to inking up notes to have context, and also produce a piece of content by the end that can close the whole loop, right? So especially for you, with the deck that you have an amazing amount of information in here, and going through, especially a deck like that, contextual learning and bias is important. So the ability for me to come in and talk about what my idea for brand positioning is, what we at Tree Frog think about buyer personas compared to you. And again, I'm making some stuff up, so you'll have to but you understand what I mean, because people will come in with a preconceived notion of what brand is. I've done it, and they don't listen to you again. Oh yeah, I did a branding exercise, and you can talk to them about 15 minutes as to why that wasn't a branding exercise, but they've moved on, right? And you got to bring them back. So that's exactly what that does. So hopefully that made sense, and I'd love to continue the conversations, but thank you for submitting your deck. We got a little bit more time, so I wanted to go through, and also I see a question regarding a writing tablet, Max. You can buy this for, it was on sale for $39 on Amazon, and I actually love it. I think Laura, you have one too. You just plug this in on the USB port, and you write on this, and it just converts. You don't need the touchscreen. So making sure that that's something that if you want, we can send you the link. And in the future, maybe we'll be able to just bundle it. But for now, Amazon is really great. Okay, so I'd love to have how to do this well without the whiteboard, and struggle to keep audience eye contact and interact with my content. So Laura, shall we jump into your presentation and see what you sent me here? Hold on, there we got it.
Really bad slides.
Oh, that's okay. Remember, slide. Hold on, Laura. Remember what we said. A slide is only 7% of your presentation. You can still get a 93 in your course by having really bad slides.
This is what you and I are friends of.
93 is not too bad. Okay, so give me a little bit background, Laura, about what you do, and that way, if anybody wants to reach out to you, they know who you are.
Yeah, well, this isn't going to be very relevant to most people here, but one of the things I do, in addition to some other things, I teach a course for HR grad students, so students who are going to get their HR certification. I teach them accounting and finance because I love a challenge. They all come in, they're like not numbers people, they hate numbers, they're like, I don't remember how to add, and I want to teach them how to be accountants. So, so this is a deck from one of those.
Okay.
Actually, next week's class.
Got it. So break-even analysis. Well, unfortunately, all my investors will tell you that I haven't learned this yet. So
I can help you out.
You can help me. That's what I was actually looking for. And then maybe you can teach my wife too.
I just want you to know she's an asset, not a liability.
You know what? Do not tell that to her if you ever meet her, because then I'll never hear the end of that. Okay, so if we're going to go through this type of an example, walk me through what you would say and what you want people to get out of this.
Okay, so the previous slide that you went would actually be a place, because I've used Reactive Suite, it would be a place for me to capture their ideas.
So give me an example. What idea should I capture here?
So a student might say, well, it's knowing that we spent the same as what we got. Okay, my ins and my outs are the same.
Okay.
It's when I'm not making any money, but I'm not losing any money either. And my profits are zero. If they're, a little bit plugged into an income statement, they might be able to give me an answer like that.
Right. Absolutely. So that's a great opportunity, and then you go through to explain how that is correct or wrong or right.
Right. I would go and explain, here are all the situations where we use break-even analysis when we're trying to figure out new prices. We're trying to launch a new product. Maybe we were retail and we're trying to figure out, should we open a new store in a new location? Should I hire more people or not? What kind of automation might I pursue? Should I add on and expand my existing location? Those kind of things. Yep.
Absolutely. So that's a great segue to writing down something, which means that it's reinforcement learning. People get to watch, they mirror, and then you go in order to go ahead and highlight the concepts, because a list is actually a great way to present information, but the problem is when you're not face to face, they scan through and then they just don't go pay attention. So cost concepts. Now, obviously, are you going in and actually giving them things like IRR, internal rate? Like, are you helping them do all those calculations? So
yeah, if I send you this week's lecture was like 12 different formulas.
Fair enough.
And I know I lost them. So this one is not as formula heavy, but yes, some of them.
Got it. So especially if it's formula heavy, I find that derivations live, when they are seeing you derive why that's the case, there's a huge impact. And that's where writing a formula and deriving it live actually has a lot of value. So I'd love to try and see. Well, I'm looking at it from the engineering perspective. Obviously, a lot of the IRR or net present value or future value, they're all the x over x minus 1, whatever, however, I can't remember them now either. So, but the ability to explain tables and show, I think that you have a very visual need, especially in showing those type of concepts, right?
Yes, for sure. I could yeah.
So there's probably a lot of content you could create around how do you visually show it if you're in that type of platform. I think that's exactly what you're exploring these days.
Yeah, I'm playing with it, but I just know I'm only scratching the surface, so that's why I'm here.
No, awesome. So do you have any other questions, Laura? Because I know we've spoken what would you like me to give everyone else as a takeaway that be given your experiences with it?
I guess what I've been doing mostly now is using a very small portion of my slides for just a little bit of content,
okay,
with a big white space, black space, or white space beside. I don't know, obviously didn't do it as much on here, but yes, space to answer the question or write in the formula, or just a lot of space to write on my slides as opposed to flipping back and forth between the whiteboard and the stage. So that it's definitely changed the way I design my slides, but
interesting.
I can do a lot more writing. I think I stay away from it because my writing is messy. It's hard to read. So.
Yeah, and by the way, you don't have to actually write. You could actually have something printed and circle and highlight and reinforce, right? So you can also, there's a variety of ways that we can short circuit that, but you are right. That is a challenge where, unfortunately, we got into a society in which everything is typed word, but the written word has a lot of value. And for thousands of years, people learn just by seeing someone write on the mud, right? And that's kind of what happens. Coming into the last few minutes, any other questions that people have? I want to make sure that I answered every question, and I would like to get some feedback from all of you in order to understand, what your thoughts are.
So Al, it's Joe.
Hey, Joe.
How are you?
How are you, buddy?
Good. One thing that was really helpful to me is that you said something about pretend you're in a boardroom, and what would that setting look like? What would it feel like? So I always take that into consideration when I set myself up. I do have the dual monitors, so my audience is on a 50-inch screen, a monitor in front of me.
Awesome.
And the other thing that really makes a huge difference, I stand. You're standing right now. A lot of people still sit.
That's right.
I stand. It adds an element to it. And the example I can give you is that we had to do a presentation to a new CEO that for North America, for Rico. And what happened is he was from Denmark. So he had no idea of the geography of Canada, or the US for that matter. And so if I talked to him about Yellowknife, and it was north of Vancouver, he has no idea. He thinks it's a couple of minutes up the road and you're in Yellowknife. And I said, well, not quite. So I showed him the map. We annotate, we draw, we ink, we do all that. And then he goes, I get it. So all of those things make such a big difference. But and then I use break rooms in Zoom because I teach courses for 3 or 4 hours. I find that the students really appreciate the breakout. So I teach a concept. I want them to understand the concept, and then I go discuss it amongst yourself, and I'll break out, or I'll put them in the breakout rooms, two or three, or whatever the case, and then they come back out of it.
Right.
And that's been huge for me, and it makes a big difference.
No,
so
for sure.
all of those little things.
All those little things, absolutely. And never forget the human element. It's interesting, you know, Deloitte basically wrote a report recently that said, right today, only about 2% of companies are thinking about meeting experiences, right? By 2024, 47% of the companies are going to worry about experiences, because can you imagine another 2.5 years of 210 slide presentations? I mean, there's only so much we can take, I think, and that's part of the challenges. Everybody's trying to break out. Any other comments or opinions here? I'd love to hear your thoughts as we're coming into the last couple of minutes. I'm happy to stay on and help people on a one-on-one. If you're interested, please reach out to me if you want to book a one-on-one session where I can go through these concepts in a lot more details. But I'd love to hear any other thoughts. How did you rate this webinar compared to everything else that you've seen? Did you get a lot more focus out of it? Did you feel like an entire hour went by? I'd love your honest feedback.
I thought it was great.
Awesome. Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it, buddy. We'll catch up.
Hey, thank you. I thought it was great. I thought it really looks different.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a totally different experience. It goes by really fast. Every time, you know, this is the second time I've sat in a webinar with you, and I keep learning new things. So thank you.
No problem. Appreciate it. And thank you all for your support. Appreciate it. Talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.